in progress.
I'm going to show you two items that show you how men and children are viewed by their wives and mothers. I'm going to show you this article where a woman murdered her son for no other reason that they were going to have shared parenting. And then I'm going to show you one that's really going to get under your nerves. Tom Tulin here, who gives his experiences, with his wife running off with his daughter. Okay. So first we'll get into this one. Carol Hodgson, 40, smothered her 2-year-old Daniel Hodgson Green with a plastic bag before trying to kill herself at home in Guysborough, North Yorkshire, right? And of course, it revealed a moving victim impact statement from Hodgson had cut him out, his talking about the father, out of his son's life when he was a baby and disappeared. So she got a baby. She never liked this guy. And she ran out and she said, "This child is my property. It's not a person whom I want to know his father. He's my property. And I'm going to deny it. No one's going to tell me what to do with my property, right?" Now, Mr. Green was applying to the family court to have more contact, and that was, and he was expecting a fact-finding hearing at the court before he was given the devastating news his son had died, right? So this is just a fact-finding hearing. It's not, it's this woman is not going to lose custody of her child. She's going to just be shared parenting. That wasn't good enough for her. Now, his statement was read at Teesside Crown Court based on the same complex as the family court, where Hodgson pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to a minimum of 18 years. Good. Now, I can't say it's justice yet unless we find out she spends her 18 years and not get out early. If it's a minimum, I hope she does more than 10 years. I hope she's old and gray before she gets out. Now, the emergency service arrived at Hodgson's home in Upper Garth Gardens to find her mother performing CPR on her. So the grandmother cared about her daughter. The heck with the grandson. Maybe she just thought he was dead no matter, obviously dead. Desperate efforts were made to revive Daniel, found lying lifeless next to his mother, but he could not be saved. Hodgson was rushed to the hospital and survived. I really wish these two were reversed because this little boy deserved to live. And by the way, this is another thing. This is the propaganda, by the way, everyone, is that it's usually, if you watch TV and movies, it's the father who's abusive and the courts are going to give the children to the mother and he decides to kill his children and then himself. But this is reality. And as you can see, this woman, if the father wasn't abusive and the father wasn't even going to take the kids away from her, it was just shared parenting. That wasn't good enough. There's the poor soul, right? The ordinary average guy. He says it's no coincidence she carried out the killing on the very morning the family court was due to hold a fact-finding hearing. Yes. Now, the judge did his job. Judge Paul Watson described the murder as horrifying and truly awful crime, aggravated by Daniel's vulnerability as a baby, and abused the trust and the fact that it was premeditated. Yes. He didn't give into this woman's crazy bullshit, right? The fact that you genuinely intended to take your own life as well, I will accept to be true, offers no mitigation for the taking of Daniel's. Thank you. He did his job. He thought about another human being besides the woman. Now, defending Hodgson, he said, Hodgson developed a wholly irrational but genuinely held belief that she was compelled to act as she did. See, he was trying to do, she was crazy, right? And it didn't work this time. It's about time that people stop seeing whenever a woman, does a criminal act that she must be crazy. If a man in this position, they just call him a criminal. And that's what this woman is. I'm glad she's behind bars. But they always have to do the crazy thing. You know why? Because people in their minds don't believe that women are capable of doing bad things. If a woman does a bad thing, she must have hit her head or something. Okay, now we'll get to Tom.
At the time, I was an assistant principal of a college, and I was working towards being a principal of a college, and I was also studying for a master's degree in what they call strategic carbon management, or I like to call it tree hugging. Well, I think the first thing is I didn't know what a red flag was. I didn't really understand it, because whilst I'd been exposed to that sort of behaviour in the past, I didn't actually understand it. Either that, or I chose to ignore it.
Tom, this is standard for men. Men want to believe the woman in their life loves them and loves her children. So men do this all the time.
So I suppose initially everything was one-sided. There was nothing reciprocated. Mum struggled with Rianne, and I never knew whether it was because she was a new mother, or whether she was just not interested or not maternal towards Rianne. I don't really know, but I took a step back and provided as much support as I could. But she got to 2 weeks and basically said, "I'm going back to work, and you're going to have to look after Rianne."
So there you go. So like I said, he had to ignore that, because in his mind, he says, of course she loves her daughter. It can't be that she's just not interested in her. And by the way, Tom, despite her lack of interest in her daughter, she still wanted to run off with her. Why didn't she just give her to you and leave you? Why? Because that'd be too much for her fragile ego, her fragile female ego. She looks at your daughter and says, this child is my property. And I'm not just going to give my property to this guy who I have no respect or love for. Right.
She put in an application to permanently remove Rianne from the UK, but at the same time, I'd put an application in to have more time with Rianne. So I was a bit shocked when I got the application for the permanent removal of Rianne to the UK. So it would be...
Exactly. I'm not shocked. Notice you said you put it at the same time. Who they ignored? They ignored yours, and they went for hers, because the entire system, whether it's the media, the education system, or the legal system, are all designed to pander to the women and throw the man away. Because your society, Tom, sees you as nothing but a little servant boy to whatever woman you attach yourself to. She's allowed to discard you at any time, and you're just supposed to accept it. That's how society sees men.
Fair to say I panicked, especially when I started reading the reasons, because she put 2 reasons. One, that living in England was not sustainable, and the second one was that I was an abusive partner and father.
And this is standard, isn't it? The modus operandi. When these women decide to discard their men, they go all out. They aim for the crotch. They have no loyalty. They never did. They have no regard for the man's reputation. Matter of fact, they hate the man when they finally get to this point. And this happens often enough that we can say it's a part of female psychology. It's just not a case of, wow, that's a bad person. It speaks to how women see men.
Now, I struggled with the accusations that were made against me. I struggled a lot.
Of course, because men can't believe it. Men think women are loyal. or they'll appreciate what the good that they've done them. That it's never happens.
Because they were lies. So, Rhian's was reported as a missing person to Essex Police. I then contacted the court in Cambridge and said Rhian's been abducted. I was then directed to reunite, and that was it really. Because of the court order saying that Rhian could be taken out of the country for 28 days, Essex Police refused to consider Rhian as a missing person. So the first thing Essex Police did was say, there's nothing we're going to do, we have to wait till she comes back. Essex Police did everything they could not to do anything. So,
of course, because the institutions are geared up to pander to women and discard the men. You live in a feminist society, Tom. You can be arrested on the UK transit for staring at a woman. So, I mean, this is the way it is.
So I would write to the Chief Constable, he would pass it on to a guy called Greg Wood. I would have a conversation with Greg. Greg basically would say, I cannot bring your daughter home. I cannot get your daughter back.
Give a reason why?
Because it was a civil issue. Your daughter isn't missing. We know where your daughter is. This is a civil issue. I said, no, the court orders have criminal penalties attached to them if they're broken.
Exactly. So first of all, that's why they try to make everything civil. So they don't criminalize women's criminal behavior. But also, even though you could prove, obviously, like you just said, that it's criminal behavior, they're going to ignore you. Now you know what the institution of the legal system is about.
No, that we won't deal with it. We're not interested. Now we're really on our own. And I'm having to fight for my daughter. And I don't really know what I'm doing or how to do it. In desperation.
Of course you do. Don't. You don't, because men don't consider that they have no rights until it lands on their doorstep. And then it's a learning curve.
I also contacted the National Crime Agency to try and get the National Crime Agency to persuade Essex Police to do something. And the National Crime Agency were brilliant, but the Essex Police wouldn't move. Rhian's abduction was...
Yeah, I noticed that. So even when you went above their heads, it didn't work. They would have to do an investigation, and they would have to fire the Essex Police and rehire new people. And actually, that's my recommendation too, because the legal institution has been feminist run. The average man, that's you and me, Tom, let things get this way. And now we have no rights as people. There actually has to be, what is it called there? There's got to be an actual rebellion and have a reorganization and kick all the man-haters out. Kick them out of education, kick them out of the legal system, and kick them out of media, and kick them out of government.
It was premeditated with the sole intent of taking it out of the UK and never returning. Taking the UK to Poland and never returning to the UK. Again, this evidence was presented to Essex Police, it was presented to Suffolk Police. I got no publicity, no cooperation from anyone. I got some newspapers interested, well, one newspaper interested in the UK and one in Poland. No names, though.
So no one's interested, because people aren't interested in men's rights. They have no empathy. That's the empathy gap. And also, if you're not allowed to mention names, that's a part of cutting your voice off. They don't want to call these female criminals.
I had to go to the High Court in London to ask for the publicity ban to be lifted. Well, I actually went.
There was a publicity ban. Really, you weren't allowed legally to tell people about your situation. Wow. I mean, I've got it bad here in Canada, but you UK men really, you're not even second-class citizens. Sorry. You are slaves.
To the Cambridge Court first, and they said they couldn't deal with it. They referred me to the High Court in London. I spent 6 weeks preparing my case for the High Court in London. By this time, I've got loads of evidence from my.
It doesn't matter if you had loads of evidence. You do not have the same rights as this woman. The court system is designed against you because of your sex. So it didn't matter.
My solicitor which said, the Polish police are not going to cooperate, they're not going to look for your daughter.
Yeah, the Polish police too. Notice this is worldwide. That doesn't matter. It's not just the England, UK, I mean. It's worldwide. Because human beings are the same worldwide.
A whole list of things that evidence from the European Commission that Poland are being investigated for non-compliance of their on enforcement grounds. The judge gave me 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, he denied me the publicity. He said that he would not allow publicity. Even though that Rianne had already been on TV in Poland, the mother had been on TV, and she'd been on Polish newspapers and on social media all over them. We have two.
Of course he denied you. The court system is anti-male and pro-female. The only reason, like up here, the Hodgson one got jailed was that a baby was murdered and society couldn't pretend that, or it couldn't show that it didn't care about the child. But your child is still alive and supposedly healthy, so now they don't have to. There's no shame. They can say, oh, the child is safe with their mother. The person who owns her property.
Two systems, one for mothers and one for fathers.
I'm going to simplify it even further, Tom. One for women and one for men. Because it doesn't really matter. Parenthood doesn't matter in itself. It's simply because you're a man, she's a woman.
And fathers are the second-class citizens who were denied legal aid, and every possible obstacle is placed in their way to stop them getting their child back. Even when it's made clear to the authorities it's in the child's best interests.
Thank you, Tom. I've been saying this for a while now. It's finally good to hear some other guy say it and admit it. Men are second-class citizens in their countries. Not just yours, mine too. Right? You admitted that. It's nice to hear that. That's right. They're going to put obstacles in the way of you getting... And also, you also demonstrated what I've said before too. The legal system, the court system have nothing to do with the interest of the child. They're lying when they say that. They're lying to themselves first and foremost. They do not care about the child. They care about pandering to the woman at the expense of the man and the children. That's what they care about.
Well, if you spoke to my wife, she would say the day that my daughter was abducted was the day she lost her husband.
No offense, Tom, but did you just mention you got remarried? No offense, but you have no rights in your marriage. This woman might be a better person than your ex, but she could turn around and do the same thing to you. I mean, anyway, I better let that go.
Because 24/7, 365 days a year, my head is working on getting Rianne home. Even when I'm in the room, she'll say to you, I'm not in the room, because she knows I'm working on the next strategy to try and bring my daughter home. Psychologically, the wounds are so deep, I don't think I can be fixed.
I agree. Betrayal is the worst. Betrayal is worse than murder. You have suffered from societal betrayal. That's the worst part. It's not just your intimate partner. You've been betrayed by the legal system. You've been betrayed by your government. You've been betrayed by the education system. And you've been betrayed by the media. All this, the institutions in your country have betrayed you. And now they've damaged you, and who knows if you can get by this, Tom.
I think I'm broken.
How much approximately have you spent?
Well, I guess about conservative about £160,000. My pensions, my pension lump sums, all my cars have gone. I know the cars is a bit. My wife's cars have gone. Her inheritance has gone.
All right, Tom, I'm going to end it here with this. One time I talked to you, I said, don't give up, but I'm fearing for your psychological well-being. You know, you're running out. For one thing, the average guy can't afford what you did. I don't have 160,000 pounds. Most other guys don't. So we don't even get it. We can't even do what you've done. But you're running out. You're running out of gas. You're running out of steam. And I fear for your mental health if this turns out to be an impossibility. So I'm going to put in addition to this, keep going to try to get your daughter back, but have a plan B in case of defeat. I'm not being a defeatist. I just don't want you to, take your life over this. You still have your life, and you've got a new wife. You still have her, right? You've got to be ready to accept that you might never see your daughter again and get on with your life. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying just in case, because I don't want to see you broken by this. Okay, now I'm going to end it here. And like I said, everybody, this is how it is for you. This is how women view their children. This is how they view their husbands. And this is how society views their so-called citizens. They're male citizens. There are no male citizens anymore. Thank you.